Is my Facebook on? Okay, meeting is now on Facebook. Um, hey, welcome everyone to our daily Native Wellness Power Hour. We are in week number 42, and today is our 241st Native Wellness Power Hour. That just uh, is unbelievable. So my name is Jillene Joseph, and I am the executive director of the Native Wellness Institute. And we are now coming up upon our 21st anniversary. We're excited about that. And we want to thank you for being here. And today is a really important power hour. And please share it with your family and friends on social media or direct them to come here after. We're talking about vaccines in COVID. And I just briefly wanted to just say something about our world, the state of the world that we're in right now. I actually haven't watched any news today intentionally. Plus, I've been super busy in training and stuff like that. But, yesterday was a very violent and triggering day, and we have been fielding calls and emails and from people, and we just want to let you know that this is a really good place to be right now. The power hours, all of the power hours that we've already had are a good place to tune into, just to help to bring some calm and some peace and some solutions. We also wanted to let you know that because of the violence and the white supremacy that we saw happen yesterday, that the Native Wellness Institute, we had a board meeting yesterday, and we've decided to open up our trainings that we already had scheduled for next week, to open them up to everyone for free. So we have a New Year, New You training, we have a healthy relationships training, and then the following week we have our Indigenous 20-something project training. You have to register to get the Zoom link, but you can find more information on our website, nativewellness.com. So that's just another one of our contributions and us stepping up and trying to just help our people gather in a good way and to be together in a good way and to learn more about collective healing and experience that in a good way. So we welcome you all to that. So the power hours are also our response to the pandemic, and we wanted to make a contribution that help people in your own healing and in your own wellness, especially when we're at home, or for those of us that are at home. And so we came up with this idea of our Native Wellness Power Hours. So every day at the same time, at the same place, we come on and we offer an hour of programming. And today we have our special guest. She's a staff of the Native Wellness Institute, and she does some of our community health work. I call her our Native Dr. Fauci. She attends, medical seminars every week and all kinds of stuff. She's not an MD. I just kind of tease her and call her our Native Dr. Fauci. She actually just got off a meeting with Dr. Fauci. She had a one-on-one. No, just kidding. It was like, it wasn't a one-on-one, but she got to listen to Dr. Fauci, and she's gonna share today some of what she learned and heard from him. So welcome, Chenoa. Thanks for being here. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Hat Slachel, Twagulapun, Chenoa Stats, Puyalabupshed. Hi everyone, good day to all of you. My name is Chenoa and I am Puyallup. And yes, I did just get off of it was a seminar, and there were probably, I couldn't even see how many participants. I'm sure there was hundreds with Dr. Fauci. And he was going super fast. You could really see his years of education and expertise really shining through. And he highlighted, um, it was a specific call to IHS service providers and medical professionals. And so he highlighted some of the inequities of not just infection rates, but also severity of disease and death rates for Native people. And it's really I don't know if you want me to just jump in really quick, but if we can do a screen share, I think our producer is gonna screen share. Hopefully it works. And this is just a visual. See, there he is. Oh, there. This is just a visual of. So what we see in red is our communities, American Indian, Alaska Native, and these are deaths associated with COVID-19 and compared to white persons. And you can see the age groups, and just even not even looking at the numbers, you can see the disparity of much higher rates. And as we age, the numbers kind of even out, because unfortunately, for people who are over the age of 80 and have other conditions, it's a lot more fatal for those folks, for our elders. Um, but I wanted to share this because I feel like in the media and a lot of our conversations, we focus so much on, um, this is only dangerous for I've seen people write this, and I'm repeating other folks. This is like we're only worried about it for old people, and
Mhm.
I don't even like using that term because I feel like it's disrespectful. And I also feel like those are the people that we need to be protecting, because these are our and especially in our communities, our language keepers, our culture keepers, etc. um, and um, but for our communities, we're seeing very much higher rates of disparities with deaths. So we can turn that off if you want. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think that's super important. Because it also shows how we all have a responsibility, right? Regardless of our age, like not just to keep ourselves safe, but to keep our families and other people safe as well, you know? So I think that's super important to take a look at, and as you and I talk about too, we see all kinds of cases where um, a person who passes from COVID that doesn't have, underlying health conditions or, appears to be healthy and all that kind of stuff. And there's just literally hundreds and thousands of stories of, all kinds of people passing or like severely being impacted by COVID, right? So like we're in this serious state. So I also know, and one of the reasons we're having this particular topic today is just to help like provide information, to provide places where people can go and do their own investigation and research to figure out what's best for them. We know that, in this pandemic, I mean, even the reason why we're doing these power hours, we knew that an already traumatized people would be re-traumatized, right? And especially around a pandemic, we have things in our past like smallpox as an example, cholera, influenza, right, the flu, and how those things have impacted our communities. And so part of that also is why so many people mistrust vaccine, right, and mistrust like what's happening. And we just want to acknowledge that, and we know that that is real. We also know that lots and lots of work has been done to build that relationship and to build the trust. We also know that the scientific community and the public health community, the community health community who are working to prevent this disease have the welfare of everyone in mind, right? And so we're coming from a place of like trusting science. We're coming from a place of like trusting these vaccines, right? And so again, that's why we wanted to do the show today on COVID vaccines. So Chenoa, can you just give us like a brief overview about COVID vaccines?
Mm-hmm. So first, I want to point out and send my condolences out to the families of the 3,600 people who passed away yesterday, or who reported gone yesterday, and that's only in the United States. And I want to point out that every day, we're losing a lot of people, and we're passing new milestones. I think we have at this point. How many infections? We have over 360,000 deaths so far in the US alone from this pandemic. And the vaccines, if you compare 1,000 people who have COVID to 1,000 people who have received the vaccine, out of that group of people who have had COVID, statistically speaking, you know, depending on the age and all of those things, statistically, one or two of those people will pass away due to the virus.
Mhm.
Out of the 1,000 people who received the vaccine, a 0% will pass away from the vaccine. And so that's one way to kind of just look at it, I guess, mathematically or pragmatically, how vaccines are meant to protect our people and communities.
That's her son, Migs. Like we can all relate, right? We all have
Still working from home.
it. And it's so funny because our kids they're always quiet and all that. And then as soon as we get into a meeting or something, it's
Yeah,
okay.
it's a happy scream. It's a healthy scream. Those are good. So yes. And in terms of like, there's right now in the US, there are two vaccines that are that received emergency approval from the FDA. And so the FDA is, you know, a federal entity. Regardless of how we feel about our politics or our how we feel about the government, etc. The FDA is run by scientists, and the scientists who are involved with the studies and the companies who have so thus far been approved have all made a commitment to the public health of our planet. Really, you know, we are all related somehow. Because as we have seen, this virus knows no borders. I want to share with you something from the Oregon Health Authority, so which I thought was a really relevant message, is that vaccines are the safest and most effective and most reliable way to keep yourself, your family, and your community health and safe from COVID-19. And the vaccines that are currently approved are 95% effective and have undergone rigorous safety testing. I know a lot of people have asked, like, what's in the vaccines, but what's in them? And it's a list of chemicals that, for example, the Pfizer vaccine, um, it works by I'm gonna read to you something from the New York Times, because the New York Times is a really great resource if anyone has questions about like the specific science of how they work. The New York Times, they have a whole section on the vaccine research, and their authors are actually scientists as well. They're like science authors. Um, and so what it does basically is gets your body to trick it into thinking that it has the virus. It activates um, the vaccine contains genetic instructions for building a coronavirus protein known as a spike. When injected into the cells, Comirnaty, Comirnaty causes them to make spike proteins, which then get released into the body and provoke a response from the immune system. And so the first one, it kind of triggers a little bit of a response. And then the booster shot 28 days later is really when they start to see the effectiveness of the vaccines, which is why they're saying the importance of getting both of those shots is really, really important that you follow up.
Yeah, and that helps to contribute to the 98% effectiveness or whatever, that 95% effectiveness. So there was a question that it's still a two-part series vaccine, correct? Not just a one shot.
Correct. The ones that are approved right now, Moderna and Pfizer, are both two shots. One of them, Moderna, I think is 28 days, and Pfizer's 21 days. So um, it's really important that you know from your provider um, which one that you get and make sure you schedule your second one within that time frame, because that's when it has the most efficacy. um, the studies that I heard are that it is also not as effective if you have certain underlying conditions, and so that's why it's also really important that you get both of those shots.
Mm-hmm.
um, I keep hearing discussions about, well, one shot, if one shot might work, and don't bother, but get the second shot is the recommendation from the FDA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice, nice, awesome. Okay, so Shanoa, getting a little bit personal, will you take the vaccine? And if so, why? Or if not, why not?
Mhm. So when it's my turn, then definitely yes. And I do that because it's not just about trusting the science, which I do trust the science. I know there's a lot of science that has been done in the past. Science and Native communities have like a sketchy past, but I feel like where we're at today, they've really tried to. There's a lot of healing work that has been trying to be worked on within the science community to address those inequities and injustices, and so that's one part of the reason why I trust it. I also feel like I want to protect my community, and I want to be a part of and I want to protect myself, because as a person who is a parent, and as a person who wants to be there to help caregive for my elders and caregive for my children, I want to be healthy and strong to do that, and this is the best way that I know how to protect them.
Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. So you mentioned when it's my turn. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like how how are those decisions being made and where can people go to get the vaccine or all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it's again kind of um it's had a rocky start. And so there's a federal guideline. It's not really like a plan. And I actually asked this question in the meeting today, and there was like 60 questions and mine didn't get answered, but you know,
Oh.
whatever. um, the question I asked though was that because of the high inequities of not just Native people, but African American, Black communities, um, Pacific Islander communities, uh, Latinx communities we're all experiencing disproportionate rates of infection and serious complications. And I said, so what role is that playing in the federal guidelines? And ultimately the answer is that it's a local choice. So they're providing their federal guidelines, but then each state is having their own plan. And so you see some states that are like really on it, and they're like rolling it out, and they're getting everybody, and they're doing it by most the guideline is healthcare providers who are caring for people who are having the virus, and then and then people who have pre-existing or really like at risk people, so over the age of 75,
Mhm.
and and with pre-existing conditions. And then the next phase will be like people who are working in frontline works, and then the general population, and somewhere in the mix is going to be children. And right now the vaccines are not approved for children who are age 15 and younger. So 16 and older are eligible for the vaccine. And
Mhm.
again, it really depends on each person's condition. And one of the physicians asked the question of Dr. Fauci, like, because of our age, going back to that chart of our disproportionate death rates for young people, like, do you recommend then rolling out the shots for people with those conditions? And Dr. Fauci said, absolutely. And so each tribal area is having their own distribution plan.
Mhm.
So, and each state is having their own distribution plan. So it's really without the federal plan or guidelines, it's kind of state by state. So my prayers are with everyone that we are able to gain access to that.
Mhm.
eventually.
Nice. Thank you for that information. What I've seen is the Indian Health Service and tribal health programs and some urban health programs, like they're on it. Like the vaccines are already getting out. And so that's like really, really good to see and good to hear.
Mhm.
Um, okay, great. So for the people out there that might be listening in or that are going to watch later who are looking at us like, you know, you guys are a bunch of sheep and, you know, all the stuff that we hear or all the conspiracy theories that we hear about it. I've certainly heard a lot. And again, another reason why we wanted to do this program to get facts out there, right? So,
Mhm.
but the people that don't want to listen to us or still have questions or concerns, fears, whatever, what are
Mhm.
some good sources and resources for people so they can do their own fact finding and do their own research about COVID and about the vaccines?
Yeah. Well, one thing to note is understanding computer algorithms. And so if you go on your internet and any search engine and you start looking at conspiracies or that vaccines are bad, etc., you're going to find all of those things. I mean, it's just countless. It's like the rabbit hole of conspiracies. But if you start off with a more like pragmatic or like general look, and you look at resources that are reliable, generally have like a .edu or a .org, um, but other resources like mainstream news articles that are like New York Times or Washington Post. And I don't work for any of those organizations or newspapers. I'm just saying that they have a long history of really being, um, they pride themselves on being reporting accurate information. And while they don't they're not like peer reviewed articles, because that's another resource you could look at that are written by that have scientific authors, and then at any time they can be questioned by their peers. um, so news articles aren't peer reviewed, but they do have an ethical standard that they hold themselves to. And so they know that if they report misinformation or conspiracy, then they lose. I mean, that is something that is like fragilely, it's fragile. And as soon as they break that code, then it's like they get called out and they lose that trust. And so that's why that's kind of like built on that.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Mhm.
You know, the other thing that we have been talking about is we're kind of like in a prime area to go down the conspiracy hole rabbit hole, right? And part of it is like what I talked about in the beginning, like we the reason we're doing these power hours is because we knew that an already traumatized people would be re-traumatized, right? So we have pandemic fatigue,
Mhm.
right? We have political fatigue, we have Zoom fatigue. We have all of this stuff, right? And we know that trauma, you know, contributes to this chronic negativity, which, you know, just makes us like these prime targets to believe these conspiracy theories
Yeah.
over the actual facts and science. And National Public Radio actually did a survey, a recent survey that showed the percentage of Americans who believe in these conspiracy theories and believe in all of this stuff. And it was like a high percentage, very interesting. So another reason why we're trying to do this. And I see we have our other special guest that just joined us. Welcome, Lily.
Hi.
So for our viewers here, we wanted to actually talk to people who have gotten the vaccine and just talk a little bit about what it was like. And so we've invited our good friend and colleague here, Lily, to come and share with us. So welcome, Lily. And do you want to just introduce yourself first?
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. Hi, Jillene. Hi, Chenoa. Hi, Shailene. My name's Lily Yasana McNair. I'm Klamath, Modoc, and Filipina. I live with my husband, Carlos, and my two children, Malia and Nova, here in Clackamas, Oregon. Thank you for having me here today. And I want to send my prayers and positive healing thoughts to all of you battling COVID and other illnesses. And I really hope everyone who's able to can get vaccinated soon so we can start giving each other hugs again, amongst other things.
Yeah, I can't wait for that too. Well, we're so happy that you joined us here today. And so Lily works for the Native American Rehabilitation Association. So I know lots of people are familiar with them. Lots of people come to our area to go to treatment, and they also offer all kinds of other resources. And Lily works for them. And because she's a frontline worker, an essential worker, she was able to get the vaccine. So Lily, can you first like tell us about like why did you decide to get the vaccine when it was offered?
Yeah, so I chose to get vaccinated for many reasons, which go pretty deep. But the first reason was because, like you said, my employer offered it to me. So I said yes and received my first dose of the Moderna vaccine on New Year's Eve, and I've had the blessing of working from home when the school shut down. So my children are doing distance learning from home. So I'm home. But when my kids go back to school, I'll be back in my direct service position. And but I just couldn't believe how fast it happened and that I had the opportunity so fast. And I just feel very grateful that I was able to get it. And I missed the first part of this, but in this present day, I have hope and faith in science and research and medicine and humanity. And other reasons I decided to get vaccinated are from just family experiences. So growing up, my parents vaccinated my sister and I have memories of my mother always mentioning vaccines in a positive light, because our matriarch of our family, my Klamath grandmother, who's 93 years old, still alive, and one of the toughest, strongest women I know, had polio before the polio vaccine was created. So she grew up working really hard on her family's ranch on Modoc Point along Upper Klamath Lake in Southern Oregon. And after getting polio, she ended up being hospitalized for 7 months for treatment, and it permanently affected her mobility. But she didn't let that slow her down. And if the vaccine for polio was available when my grandma was a little girl, she could have received it and not had to go through what she went through, just like our generations didn't have to experience with polio. And then another reason I chose to get vaccinated is because of a personal experience with my son. So, so I experienced watching my son when he was 2 years old receive radiation and chemotherapy through his port that was implanted in him for about 6 months for a stage 3 Wilms tumor at the end of 2016. And he had to have his left kidney removed because one of the tumors swallowed it. And but because of the amazing medical professionals and research and science and medicine and prayers, he's about 4 years cancer-free in remission now. His hair grew back. He's just so healthy and so recovered, like you would never even know he experienced that. And I'm not comparing chemotherapy and radiation to my Moderna vaccine that I took, but when I was in the room with medical professionals that were caring for, genuinely caring for all these children and working miracles on them, and cared for my son and like cried with me and hugged me. There became this moment that really stood out for me when we were first admitted, and one of the doctors asked if my son, who was almost 3 at the time, if he was up to date on his childhood immunizations. And I said, yeah, he is. And he was like, oh, great. And he just had this, like, he expressed so much like some relief, like that, you know, that he felt my son had, you know, some type of extra protection. And I was like, wow, like these vaccines are really important. And so it was for me, instead of, you know, it was the human connections and feelings that these amazing doctors, this was at OHSU and Dornbecker's, you know, one of the top hospitals in the world for children. And who, like I said, they cared so much about the children, you could feel it. So that was also when I had that deeper faith and hope in science and research and medicine. And like I said, just humanity. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And
uh,
yeah, Nova's this awesome, awesome young man.
Thank you.
He's just so awesome.
Thank you.
And he's awesome because he has awesome parents.
Thank you.
So Lily, I know like you were feeling guilty about taking the vaccine, right? So how did you move through that? And the reason I'm asking that is because we've heard from people who are feeling the same, like they're feeling guilt because like their parents or their grandparents aren't getting it and they are. So how did you move through that?
So, yeah, I felt overwhelming guilt that I was crying because, yeah, like you said, um, it's affecting, it's affecting and harming so many people. And I wanted my parents and my grandparents to get the vaccine first, but I told them, and they're like, no, just get it. We're gonna get it too. Don't worry. You work with people too. And I said, cause I forget, cause it's been 9 months now that I've been home. So I forget what I actually do. Everything's a blur. So, and you too, Jillian, you reminded me that you will be back, in direct service, really soon. So, that just talking to my support systems is what helped me get over the guilt. And also too, because some people aren't able to get the vaccine for health reasons. Like when my son was going through chemo and radiation, he couldn't get his child vaccines because his immune system was weakened. And I know this vaccine's different than, other vaccines, but I also want to be able to protect my community and family by having it. And
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
also, and one other thing too was that one of my coworkers was also scheduled this week to get his vaccine, but he tested positive over the weekend before it. So now, and thank you, Creator. He's doing much better, but he said this is the most awfulest thing I've ever experienced. And if I had the opportunity, I wanted to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Awesome. So what did it feel like? Like, what did it physically feel like when you got it, and how are you feeling now? When, like you said, you got it on the 24th,
31st.
the 31st. Yeah. So what did it like physically feel like when you got the shot, and then how are you feeling now?
So I've had a lot of different types of shots, like tetanus shots and all different things, and this probably hurt the least. It happened so fast. I asked the nurse if I could take a picture of myself while she was giving it to me, and I almost, the reverse button, so it's a selfie function. It happened so fast, I almost missed the picture, but I got it, thankfully, and it didn't hurt. Like it was so quick, and I don't know, it didn't hurt compared to the flu shot I had earlier in the year.
Nice,
And
nice. And then how did it feel after? Like, did you have any?
so then I was monitored for 15 minutes. Everybody was monitored for 15 minutes after the shot. And also I checked off on my paperwork. I don't have any allergies. I don't have any underlying health conditions that I know of. And I'm not pregnant or nursing. So, you check off all those, and then before you take it, and the nurse will go over some health history with you. But I felt fine compared to other coworkers I spoke with that did, like one was flushed immediately, like it felt a flush in her face immediately and had a bruise on her arm. One of my coworkers had a fever the next day and had to take Tylenol, and then he was okay. And my cousin that took it before me, she told me that maybe a couple hours after, she was walking around in the store and she kind of felt weak, and she drank some water and sat down, and then she was okay. But and everyone talked about the sore arm, but for me, that part was skewed because the day before, Uh-oh.
Oh, awesome. There you are.
I thought my internet stopped.
Awesome. There you are getting it.
Um, but so the day before I got the vaccine, because it happened so fast, I had no idea it was going to happen this fast. But my daughter and I did this workout with these bands. So my arms were already really sore and heavy. So I don't know the difference between the soreness from the bands and the soreness from the vaccine.
That's good. That's good. Awesome. So, Lily, what words of encouragement would you have for people that are tuning in now or that might watch it later who are still kind of like uncertain and struggling with the decision if they're going to get the vaccine or not? Words of encouragement for them.
I would just say that if you have the opportunity to take it and are able to, and if it feels right, to take it, because like I mentioned earlier, my coworker who, and one of my best friends who is so diligent about like, the mask, the sanitizer, everything he does, he carries around that aerosol spray and sprays things, and he still got COVID right before his appointment, right before he was scheduled. And also more kind of like advice, just make sure you drink water and you're hydrated during it.
Mm-hmm.
But because yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Lily. And Lily, do you want to just share a little bit about what you do? Like
So
for your work.
sure. So I'm a mental health therapist, and I do individual and group therapy with mostly it's been like a beading group therapy, and we were doing different art, and when it's winter we do an art group, and then when it's spring and summer and fall we do a garden group. So those we were unable to do because of the pandemic hit right in March, but we've been able to do like I also feel very grateful and blessed that I've been able to be home or work from home, that my agency allows me to work from home because my kids are home doing school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm just really thankful for my agency for letting me do that. And I'm very thankful for technology because we've been able to do Zoom group, like a Zoom meeting group, and a Zoom appointments if there, because you can pick if you want to do phone or Zoom, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
thank you.
So, as a mental health professional, what are you doing for your self-care during this pandemic time?
So definitely loving the time that I'm having with my kids and my husband, and because before the pandemic we were so busy with soccer and taekwondo and basketball and forget what else we were doing before then, and everything, when everything stopped, we were home together all the time, and I've just loved that time. And I've really been, yeah, like my self-care is being able to spend time with my family and get to also, I'm definitely not homeschooling because the teachers are amazing, how much work they're doing with the children, but I'm enjoying getting to be more involved in their work, and kind of doing our own additional stories that we just we get it, we have more time to do that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So
Awesome.
and of course like beading and
Mhm.
decluttering.
Yeah. Good. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Chenoa, can you think of any other questions for Lily regarding the vaccines, or do you have anything else to share regarding the vaccines before I ask you some final questions?
How are you feeling now, Lily? You back to normal?
Totally normal. yesterday when I touched this spot, it was tender where I had the shot, but today it doesn't feel like it at all. But it was so tender for 2 days, like worse than a bruise feels. My poor son and husband like touched it on accident a few times, and I screamed because it was so tender.
Mhm.
But other than that, I feel really good.
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 And I had shared something right before you joined about the comparisons of, if you had 1,000 people who had COVID versus 1,000 people who had the vaccine, what the outcomes would be statistically. And so, would you would you agree that having a tender spot and maybe a little sluggish for one day um, beats having COVID?
I do, especially after I really didn't. I really lucked out on my symptom on having not really many side effects. We'll see how dose two goes, but I feel really fortunate. I didn't really feel anything, and it was New Year's the next day, so I didn't have to work that day, so I got to sleep in and not worry about anything. But from talking to my friend and how much pain and he's going through, it's I would take that painless shot over that and a sore arm
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. We were talking of all of the conspiracy theories, and one of them is, people are questioning, like, well, what is in the vaccine, right? And people can do their research and go to Centers for Disease Control and other sites and get like the actual chemicals and the actual consistency. And we were laughing because did people ask themselves things when you eat hot Cheetos, like what's in those? Or when you drink a Pepsi, what's in that? Right?
Right. And
What are
that
the chemicals in those things? Are you questioning other things, or are you just questioning the vaccine because you hear all these conspiracy theories? So I thought that
yeah.
was like a good point to like think about, right?
Yeah. And that was for me too, seeing my son get that, scary sounding chemicals in him, but he became healthier from it. Like it saved his life.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely puts things into perspective,
mhm.
right?
If he, I said, if he can get that, if he can get his chemo and radiation, I can get that shot. And
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. So, Chenoa,
Mhm.
what have you been doing for your self-care during this pandemic time?
Um, Self-care, I'm really trying to just take my time and like breathe and like um I struggle with anxiety and like this pandemic has literally been my worst nightmare come to life. And those who know me, um people laugh and joke and stuff about like I'm like what Lily was describing, the extra hand sanitizer, spraying everything, etc. I mean, I was not that diligent before, but definitely aware of germs. And so I guess this has kind of been a way for me to be safe and healthy, but also manage my mental health because I want to make sure that my body is strong. And science has proven that your immune system is related to your mental health, um, and that if you're stressed, your immunity goes down. I mean, this is proven time and time again. And so I'm trying not to stress and just um, eat well. And on the call, with Dr. Fauci, I'm not trying to like
Name drop.
not trying to name drop. I'm just saying it's like fresh in my mind, and I feel like he's been this expert and he has decades of experience in education. And he was sharing about um, because there's been a lot of hype over vitamin D. And he was saying, just make sure people have a healthy level of vitamin D. And vitamin D, we get it from the sun, and that's great. But if you live in locations that are further north, we have shorter days and cloudier days, and so we're not getting. A lot of us are vitamin D deficient. I've had other providers are like, your vitamin D is low, your vitamin D is low. And so so taking supplements, you know, with your, I'm not a doctor, I'm not saying suggesting anyone take one, but making checking with your provider, make sure your levels are good, because it can also affect your mental health and wellness, because they've also linked vitamin D deficiency to depression and anxiety and your immune system. And so he was saying having good levels of vitamin D is good for your immunity. And some of the risk factors that he specifically mentioned, that because there's like a long list of pre-existing health conditions,
Mhm.
but some of them that are really high in our communities are diabetes, smoking, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and obesity. And so, you know, it just got me to thinking, or I've been thinking about this and just making sure that I'm at least getting, you know, if I'm not doing like insanity, at least moving my body. And that really helps to like, it helps to sleep better, helps me to sleep better, and it helps to like, helps my mental health. And I know that this is contributing to my healthy outcomes. And he also mentioned, if I could just say one more thing, he also mentioned that there's a considerable degree of skepticism. That was his direct quote, was a considerable degree of skepticism in Black, Native and Black communities, in BIPOC communities, about this vaccine. And
Mhm.
it's and he acknowledged that it was with reason. And
Mhm.
so, and we have these disproportionately high rates of um, infection and um, serious outcomes. And so I think that's why, and thank you, Jillene, for bringing this up, because that's why we need to address it and heal from within our own communities. And um, yeah, and hope that we can address this. And our ancestors faced the same thing. And if they had access to the medicines that we have access to, you know, a lot of our relatives would still be alive. And how Lily was saying about her grandma surviving polio, and other of our grandparents surviving TB, and even like measles. Like measles were like detrimental to a lot of our people, and that wasn't that long ago. You know, this is within some of our parents' lifetime,
Mhm.
and now we have those vaccines to protect our bodies. And so I really strongly encourage people to not only get the COVID vaccine when it's your turn, but also make sure that you're up to date on your vaccines, for all of your vaccines. um, and because these are medicines that can protect us if we're faced with something else. And the more people who get it, the more we're protecting those who can't. You know, because like Lily was saying, like there are people who are going through certain conditions, or there are certain people who have drug allergies. I know that's another thing that's been coming up in the media, as people having adverse reactions. And it's just, I feel like there's a little bit of sensationalization, tell me what this word,
Sensationalism.
sensationalizing. Yeah, that with that, because there are adverse reactions to a lot of medications. And from my understanding, the ones who had those adverse reactions had a history of anaphylactic shock and
Mhm.
the allergies to specific medications. And that's why you need to check with your provider and see. And it's not the same as having a food allergy. So
Mhm.
really, really checking with your providers if you have a history of those kinds of shock, um, to check and do reliable research.
Mhm.
And
That's a
if you
very
don't,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, and if you don't have an adverse reaction, or if you don't have the series, and you're just worried about the chemicals, or conspiracies or whatever, I really urge people to consider those who absolutely cannot get the vaccine, and think about who you can protect.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. I think too, for the people who still, hold tight to conspiracy theories. Of course, they don't call them conspiracy theories, right? Like the people that don't believe in them call them conspiracy theories. That's their truth, right? So if you are anti-vaccine because of things that you've read or heard, I think that's a good time just to pause, right? And then with an open mind, try to read the science behind the vaccines, right? Just so you can like try to sort through everything and have the discernment yourself. Um, I think another thing, Chenoa or Lily, is so once you get the vaccine, that now are you free just to go out and about and not wear a mask anymore and go hug people and go to people's houses? So you want to share about
Wouldn't that
that?
be nice? Wouldn't that be awesome? Well, first of all, the vaccine rollouts have been, um, what's the clean way to say it? It's a poop show, for some states, and for others, other states are doing really well, but the vaccine rollout is really slow. That's one thing, and the second part of that is that it's after the second shot, and it's like 7 to 10 days after your second shot that
Mhm.
you yourself have that protection. That doesn't mean the science is still too early to know if now that after Lily gets her second shot, could she still then it makes the if you do become infected, it makes the uh,
Symptoms?
symptoms. Thank you. Symptoms not as serious,
Mhm.
but or and it does. They don't know yet if a person can still be an asymptomatic carrier. So that's why we need to continue to
Mhm.
mask and social distance.
Mhm.
Yeah, I decided I'm just gonna act as if I'm not vaccinated and continue to wear my mask and physical distance and
Mhm.
extra hand sanitizer and hand washing.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. So we're trying to reach herd immunity, right? Like that's part of what the whole vaccine is all about. So what is that? What is herd immunity?
There's like a really good video that is put out by like different companies where it's like a cartoon, and I'll have to post it in the comments later. But herd immunity is like if you have a group of people who have it, it doesn't mean that they're 100% protected, but let's say that you put them all together and they've all been vaccinated, and then a new person who comes in who gets infected, then that means that they won't spread it as far. And if you think about all of the people, all of the population as a whole, then there's these pockets of people who are unable to get the vaccine. Where the herd immunity is the idea that enough people will stay healthy so that they won't infect people who are unable to get the vaccine. And I believe the number is like 60 to 75% of the population needs to have the vaccine to even achieve that. And we're like not even, I don't even know like what 1% are vaccinated with the first shot or something. It's really early.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just put that video link in the
Oh,
chat.
man.
Yeah, that the YouTube video that you shared. And
Yeah, and
so-
this came out before the pandemic, and so this is actually specific to like vaccines in general.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I thought that was, thank you.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I have a colleague who just yesterday was sharing when it's his turn to take the vaccine, he's going to take it. And when we come to a time when we get to travel and do all that again, he's still going to wear his mask and he's still going to use hand sanitizer and, all of that. So I think a lot of us will be doing that, right? I think now it's kind of like we went back to elementary school when we learn about germs and the way germs spread. Like we've
Mhm.
had a refresher about that, right? And people are like, yeah, I don't want to breathe the same air you're exhaling, right?
Mhm.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
So,
and keep your mask on when you're conversing. There was another thing that he brought up specifically about that. Like, um, I wonder if I could. I don't know if it might be too late to pull it up now, but the thing that he specifically mentioned was not just physical distancing, but singing and shouting and talking can be spreaders of the infection. And so when you're meeting with somebody, even if it's outside,
mhm,
don't remove your mask to talk, because that is like spreading the germ. Like just use a louder voice, if you
mhm.
can, or signs, or use the phone. I mean, we're in the digital era.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, I want to thank you both for being here on the Power Hour and for sharing your experiences and your knowledge and your wisdom. And I've been sharing with several people. When I was pregnant with Shailene, my first child, me and my grandma, she wanted to go out visiting one day, and so we went to visit her sister. And so I was probably like 6 months pregnant or something. And so it was such a fun day. I wish I could have recorded the whole day. But anyway, I was asking them all kinds of things about pregnancy and raising babies and all of this. And I was asking them about, you know, baby lullabies, and they were like singing lullabies and laughing and, you know, having their own, you know, reminiscing about their own childhood and raising kids. And one of the things, I didn't even ask about it, but they told me about it, was vaccines. And they talked about polio, Lily, like the example that you were giving. And so they told me the importance of vaccinating my child, right? um and they also told me about how smallpox had impacted our people. And that was the first time I heard about like that particular story. And since then I've learned, you know, heard more stories and learned more. And even like it gets down to the point where like I'm here today because, you know, my particular band of my tribe didn't get the smallpox, right? Because the precautious measures that they took. But the reason they were telling those stories is because they said, could you imagine if there was a vaccine for smallpox and our people knew what was going to happen? Do you think they would have taken a vaccine for the smallpox? And they said, yes, they would have, right? And so now, like, we have already seen what COVID is doing to our tribal communities, right? And in reservation and rancheria communities and villages in urban areas. The graphic that, you know, Chenoa showed at the very beginning, like it has really impacted our people. And all of us on this call, you know, we know personal family and friends that have passed from COVID, right? And so I think that's another reason why this is in our past, right? And how we can take that and bring it to the future about vaccinating ourselves and making sure that our family and friends, when it's their time, can also be vaccinated, right? To all help us move forward in a better way and to really contribute to humanity, you know. So again, thank you, Chenoa, and thank you, Lily. And we want to thank each of you that for tuning in today. And someone shared that they're going to share this with their classroom and they're studying the virus. So that's awesome. Hi, kids, if you're our hi students, if you're watching, please share this with your family and friends so other people can just learn more and just have some food for thought. If you're still having, you know, questions or concern about it, do your own research. And you know, we just really hope that people choose to get vaccinated. So we'll see you tomorrow. Our power hours are every day at the same time, the same place. This is our 242nd power hour today. They can all be found on our YouTube channel as well. So if you're running out of things to binge on Netflix, you can go binge on the power hours. So, all right. Thanks everyone. We'll see you later.